Department of Higher Education in Parliament, I indicated that we're working towards finalization of a new comprehensive recommendations of the Ministerial Task Team on the Comprehensive Student Funding Model, which was chaired by Professor Mdose, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Zululand, deputized by Professor Peterson, who is the VC and Principal of the University of the Free State. I indicated then that through the Comprehensive Student Funding Model, we'll introduce measures to support all the categories of students, including those who are currently not supported by the NSFAS bursary and funding policy. Today, I'm pleased to stand before you to indicate that we are now ready to implement what is the first phase of the Comprehensive Student Funding Model, which will ensure that what we call the missing middle students will now be able to access financial support from government in a form of a loan to pursue their studies. That's what we are basically announcing today. A bit more detail about this, and to inform the country that government is putting for the first time some money towards addressing what has been a challenge. Just to remind ourselves as of now, this category of students are those who come from families who have a total income of more than 350,000 rand. In other words, they don't fall within NSFAS, but also not more than 600,000 per annum. Let me just explain this. I don't know what's happening that side. Let me just explain this. Can I hold a bit? Can I hold a bit? Oh, all right. Let me continue. Let me just explain this. That NSFAS bursary, its total family income of up to 350,000 or 350,000 or less. Then you get a bursary. But there are also exceptions with the NSFAS bursary on this score, so that there isn't any confusion. Students who have disabilities, NSFAS would fund them even if they come from families who earn up to 600,000 rand. All right? Also, if you have got more than one student at university as a family, NSFAS also does allow for appeals, so that NSFAS could consider funding those students even if the parents are earning more than 350,000 but not more than 600,000. I just thought I needed to clarify that. Otherwise, other than those who are earning up to 350,000 and who are NSFAS recipients, it's only students with disabilities as well as families that have got more than one student at university. Otherwise, the rest then are going to be covered by this missing middle loan scheme. This is a very important milestone in the commitments of the ANC-led government to advance a better life for all as we celebrate 30 years of our freedom. This loan scheme will be administered by NSFAS, which is required by law to actually offer and manage. It's mandated in law to offer and manage student loans based on Section 19 of the NSFAS Act. NSFAS truly represents one of the most progressive and successful efforts by the government to systematically break the legacy of intergenerational poverty by ensuring access to post-school education and training. Between 2019 and 2022, let's repeat this, NSFAS has disbursed 123 billion rands distributed across 2.9 million students or beneficiaries. As an administrator, NSFAS will deliver on front-end services that is user interface, and where appropriate will partner with public or private financial institutions, as well as universities with experience in running student loan scheme, to provide back-end support and other services. In other words, NSFAS is going to specifically look for partners to enhance its capacity to manage this scheme as required in terms of the law. NSFAS will also be using existing capacities in the universities to work and oversee the steady growth of capacity in the loan unit to service the scheme. When we make further announcements after the official release of the matric results on the 18th, after the 18th, NSFAS will provide further details on the full implementation plan of this loan scheme, which is what they are finalizing at the moment. But we thought that returning students in particular, but not only them, we will also be looking at new students who are going to be coming. It's better that we announce this now, separate from the other announcements we'll be making about responding to matric results. Now, before I provide further details on the implementation of which we call the first phase of our comprehensive student funding model, let me remind all that South Africa's post-school education and training sector is one of the biggest, if not the single largest in the African continent, with highly developed institutions that feature in the global arena of international education, training, research, technology development, and innovation. South Africa also, by the way, has the single largest research infrastructure on the African continent. When the sixth administration took over in 2019, spending on education as a proportion of overall government expenditure was 22.7% in 2019-2020 and 7.2% of gross domestic product, far exceeding the benchmarks, by the way, set by UNESCO, which is the United Nations Agency on Education, which recommends allocating 15 to 20% of public spending to education and 4 to 6% of GDP to education. We are higher than the standards that have been set by the United Nations on education. I must indicate that as we draw closer to the end of the sixth administration, we are continuing the spending. For instance, what we're going to be putting now for the missing middle is actually going to raise the amount government spend to support education. This illustrates that this government continues to spend a large share of its national budget on education, both at the basic education and post-education and training levels. The ministerial task team that I spoke about, led by Professor Mtose, reviewed a number of solutions to what we call missing middle funding, outlining a number of loan and bursary options already available within the student funding landscape. Again, let me just explain this quickly. Part of moving towards a comprehensive student funding model, we will have to actually look at all government funding, all bursaries or loans that are given by government as a whole and at different spheres. Because other government departments give bursaries, provinces give bursaries, municipalities give bursaries. All that is government money that is being spent on education. So part of our work as the Department of Higher Education and Training will be to pull this together so that we have one central port that we can look at. That is what we are going to be developing during the course of this year and maybe in the next year as well. Now, the ministerial task team was carried out in two phases. The first phase was to support immediate recommendations for the 2024 academic year, which is what we are presenting today. But the second phase was to make medium to long-term recommendations for the future funding. We've got those. They've been approved by Cabinet in principle, but then we are going to be further implementing those in the coming years. The ministerial task team reported to me in July 2021 and also made a presentation to Cabinet on the 22nd of June 2022. And the Ministerial Task Team concluded that it is possible for government to develop a comprehensive and universal financial aid solution that is affordable and sustainable in the long term. This comprehensive and universal financial aid solution will resolve the ongoing challenges that affect post-school institutions on an annual basis. We are working really towards breaking this repeat year in after year demand for funding. This is going to go a long way to actually address that from 2024. Following Cabinet's directive, the department consulted various stakeholders, including student and labor organizations, the vice-chancellors, the Banking Association of South Africa, the BBBE Commission of Government, the Public Investment Corporation and National Treasury. Consultations also took place with the Department of Trade Industry and Competition, Business Unity South Africa, National Economic Development and Labour Council known as NEDLAC, ICSASA Student Financial Aid Program, the Public Protector, COSATU, the South African Democratic Teachers Union, the BBBE Commission, as I have said, the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, the University Chancellors Forum, and the South African Human Rights Commission. I also do need to say, by the way, that we are now also beginning to work very closely with the Department of Performance Monitoring and Evaluation so that they are able to assist us in assessing the impact of all these interventions in government performance and in the performance of our own department. We have also conducted international benchmark study of student financial aid scheme in different parts of the world. I may as well just say NSFAS is one of a kind in the world. We're not aware of any scheme of this nature, even more so from a developing country. By the way, what sometimes people write DG and say, yeah, but Germany has got a free higher education. Why are you not having free higher education? Many of these developed countries, all they call in free higher education is tuition fees. That's all. NSFAS is tuition, it's accommodation, in some instances it's transport, it's food, it's books, and it's pocket money for incidental expenses. No scheme provides for this. So usually when people compare us to other countries, they are comparing apple and oranges. There is no scheme that we are aware of this kind that we have. The work on the other bursary and scholarship funding in the university system shows that 161,000, just over that, students in the public university system received bursaries from sources other than NSFAS. That's what I was talking about. That there are other sources as well that are funding students from government. As we gradually implement our comprehensive funding model, we'll continue to work with all funding stakeholders to ensure that we consolidate these multiple bursary schemes to ensure that we have a consolidated and efficient loan and bursary system in South Africa. But this is a good start that we are implementing today. Why do we say it's a good start also? A number of universities have got loans to deal with the missing middle. So we are making a contribution, a significant contribution also to that. The 2017 National Income Dynamics Study data estimates that 85.6% of all households in South Africa will fall in the low income category, earning less than 350,000 per annum, in other words, if you are talking about the earning capacity of South Africans. And 11% of households fall into what we call the missing middle category, between 351,000 and 600,000. This tentatively means that currently our ANC-led government funds approximately 85.6% of students who are from the poor working class families who have been admitted to institutions. We need to qualify that. Government will now be expanding its funding through the loan scheme to the 11% of the missing middle students. Now, I want to present to you our plans for this funding that I've just spoken about. The implementation of this is divided in two phases. Phase 1 is going to be this year, 2024 to 2025, where we have committed as government the initial capitalization fund totaling 3.8 billion rand to support the loan scheme in 2024 for the missing middle. 3.8 billion rand. This amount comprises of 1.5 billion from the National Skills Fund and 2.3 billion from Sector Education and Training Authorities, SETAs. This amount we estimate will fund 47% of the missing middle students. That is 31,884 in terms of our estimate of the estimated 68,446 students in the missing middle category. So this is going to fund half immediately of the missing middle students, which means the rest we are of course going to be working with the universities so that those universities who are able to fund this are able to also assist in giving loans to the missing middle students. Of course, on our part, we also have to make sure that your poorer universities, we pay particular attention to them, though they have got a very small number of missing middle students. On the implementation of this scheme, we have also committed funds to revive the NSFAS ICT systems, including NSFAS's own loan system, which they have. On the implementation of the scheme, the department has thus far consulted with National Treasury, as I have said, university vice-chancellors and student leaders, who have all supported it in principle, this direction that government is taking, which is, of course, good news. Further workshops will be held with the registrars of our institutions and student financial officers once NSFAS has obtained board approval for the funding guidelines. By the way, much as the demand for the missing middle is largely with universities, we also will be dealing with the missing middle in TVET colleges, although they're a very tiny percentage of the TVET college students. In implementing phase 2 of the funding model, which is now from 2025 to about 2034, the department will ensure that the seed funding contribution by government is increased to 31.6 billion rand, from 31.6 billion to 42.1 billion over 10 years. That is approximately 3.1 billion to 4.2 billion. Now, my drafters, this doesn't sound right to me at all. We are saying phase 2, 2025 to 2034, we are going to increase missing middle funding. Is it not from 3.1 billion or 3.6 billion to 42.1 billion over 10 years, which is approximately 3.1 billion to 4.2 billion annually in terms of increase? That's correct. It's not 31.6, it's from 3.1, which is where we are now. Together with the National Treasury, we will continue to engage with relevant institutions, including public and private financial institutions, as well as public and private banks, to expand the scheme. In order to qualify for the loan, this is very important. Students should meet the following criteria. Although I must say NSFAS is also working on further, what do you call it? The criteria for funding, what do you call it in NSFAS language? Guidelines, yes, that's the word I'm looking for. NSFAS is going to come with further funding guidelines, but here is the criteria that already is going to guide this. We're going to be funding this missing middle. Students whose annual household income is between 351,000 or 350,000 1 cent and up to 600,000 rand. We're also going to be funding both TVET and university students, public universities and public colleges. We're also going to be funding, by the way, this is very important, both undergraduate and postgraduate students. In other words, those who are unable to get money from the NRF we will also be able to assist them through the scheme. And the criteria for funding is that 70% of those funded must be following science, technology, engineering, and mathematics programs, STEM programs. And we may adjust this a little bit to include commercial programs that are in demand in the labor market or entrepreneurial programs. But largely the 70% will be directed towards funding those who are in STEM disciplines and 30% in humanities programs. And all the students who will be funded must be willing to sign a loan agreement. Conditionalities: students can apply for the loan in year 1, year 2, year 3, and so on, in order to continue to be funded through the loan. And students are expected to get 60% pass rate on average to continue being funded. Students will be supported for tuition, learning materials, and accommodation. That's what the scheme is going to be funding. Students who obtain 70% or above on average and finish within prescribed time will get 50% reduction of the loan on request. In other words, if you finish on record time, 50% of the loan will be converted into a bursary. You will only be expected, when you start working, to pay back the other 50%. Now, I want to end just by indicating, moving towards the end. I'm not yet ending, but I'm closer to there. On the matter of the leave of absence of the NSFAS board chairperson, Mr. Kosa, in the light of the chairperson of NSFAS having requested and been granted on his own initiative to take leave of absence, I wish to inform South Africa that I have appointed Professor van Staden, the former Vice-Chancellor of the Tshwane University of Technology, as the acting chairperson of NSFAS, with immediate effect. I have already had a briefing session with him, emphasizing the importance of NSFAS to prioritize readiness for the beginning of the 2024 academic year. The acting chairperson will also prioritize the employment of a new CEO and fully implement the Werksman's report that was commissioned by NSFAS to look at corruption and other shenanigans that were taking place, especially around the service providers who were providing allowances to students. Let me take this opportunity to thank our President, Cyril Ramaphosa, and the entire cabinet for ensuring that government protects the right for access to education by implementing this first phase of the comprehensive student funding model. My gratitude also goes to my Deputy Minister, that we've worked together with him on this, and to the Director General, Dr. Nkosinathi Sishi, as well as to Professor Mdose, who was chairing the team, Banking Association of South Africa, Universities South Africa, Public Investment Corporation, National Treasury, Department of Trade and Industry, Business Unity South Africa, National Economic and Development Council, Labour Council, NEDLEC, ICSASA Student Financial Aid Program, Student Formation, SAWUS and SAVETSA, Public Protector, COSATU, SATU, the South African Democratic Teachers Union, the Triple BE Commission, COCTA, the department, the University Chancellors Forum, and the South African Human Rights Commission. And also those I might have inadvertently missed. But I thank everyone for having walked this route with us. Let me also take this opportunity to wish all those who want to apply for this loan scheme well. And NSFAS is going to be providing details within the next 2 weeks or so after the matric results have been released. When we discuss our state of readiness, NSFAS is going to announce further details on how students should apply for this scheme. In conclusion, I also wish to point out that this is another measure that our government is taking. We urge our students and parents to make use of this and grab such opportunities with both hands, so that we continue to support funding of education and funding of students in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor.
Sure. Thank you, Minister, for that. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, this is now an opportunity for you to ask any questions if you've got any, to clarify yourselves. And what we would kindly request is, as you ask your questions, please just identify yourself as to which media house you belong to. And we will take about 3 rounds of questions, and then thereafter we will wrap up the media briefing. You may now rise to ask any questions if you've got any.
Zola Sholana from Newsroom Africa. Minister, I just wanted to ask about concerns that were raised by students in the previous year, some of them not getting allowances on time. And now the question is, are the allowances going to be paid up, especially those who didn't get allowances towards the end of the year? What happens? And those with outstanding fees, where does NSFAS stand in terms of that? When are you addressing such issues?
Okay, that's one. Is there perhaps another question? Okay, I'm checking around the room. Okay. There's another one there.
Thank you. This question coming from online, Ponzo Mutsipe from KFM News. And the first question is with regards to the NSFAS. Students are facing challenges with the capped amount set for student accommodation, as this residential accommodation tends to be over the set amount, and how will this challenge be solved? And the second one, some returning students still have outstanding debt from last year, as NSFAS has not paid out, and they've also not received registration funds for the year, with lectures at some universities set to begin tomorrow, and which means they are facing the possibility of exclusion, and how will this be resolved? Thanks.
Okay, I think we got that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Is there perhaps another question in this round? Okay.
In the last briefing that you had, Minister, you had mentioned that you are working very hard as a financial scheme to improve your communication services, as you'd understand that most students were complaining about your call center, communication basically from NSFAS. How far are you with that? Because we do understand that there's some students that are still complaining that they've been awaiting communication from the trust fund, and really this has been an issue for quite some time now. If you could just give us an update on that.
Okay. Thanks. Okay.
Ishmael, maybe would you like to start on this communications item? Then I'll come in.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, let's respond to those, and then we will take the next round.
I don't want to speak for you now anymore.
Thank you very much, Minister, and the entire leadership. In terms of your question, the NSFAS has now, it is actually now implementing their new communication strategy, which focuses both internally and externally. This includes the enhancements that are being made in the call center, and also to address all the issues that relates to stakeholders. There has been numerous engagements thus far on the issues of outstanding allowances, and NSFAS will communicate that as promised, that by the 15th of January we would have concluded that process. But secondly, in terms of the consultations with various stakeholders on the funding guidelines broadly, NSFAS has been engaging with both the vice chancellors and the principals of colleges, and a similar process will unfold as we'll be implementing the current loan scheme. Such engagements will take place with all the stakeholders within the post-school education and training sector. Thank you very much.
There's one thing that you missed. Ishmael has been appointed.
Yeah, thank you very much. By the way, Ishmael has now been appointed as a full-time head of communications and spokesperson of NSFAS, because they haven't had that for quite a long time. And that's part of improving communications, which we welcome as the department, because as the department, we don't want to be communicating on behalf of NSFAS. NSFAS must speak for itself. It's got the authority to run the scheme. Allowances, yes. I have raised this. I've met, by the way, with the board of NSFAS now, twice, right towards the end of last year and beginning of this year. And I've been emphasizing with them one thing, and I want to repeat this. If SASSA is administering grants to 18 million South Africans, why should NSFAS have a problem in properly administering 1 million grants? I'm not saying that because I'm not aware that we haven't also properly, the DG will agree with me here, funded the administrative capacity of NSFAS. Because 1 million is nothing really, given the fact that we pay 18 million social grants in South Africa. So with the necessary support. But I've said to NSFAS, make sure that one student not paid an allowance a month is too much. Is one too much already. And we have agreed. In fact, in my discussions last night with the incoming acting chairperson of the board, I said, go and quickly, well, he was on the board already, though not for a long time, but go and familiarize yourselves with everything that needs to be done to make sure that we start the academic year in the manner in which we want to start it. I also, by the way, need to emphasize this without speaking for NSFAS. We still have many people who are chancing NSFAS. And that's a reality that the Auditor General has been on our case about. That is where we feel that students do not meet criteria. We tell them, but they've got an opportunity to appeal. And we've said to NSFAS, your turnaround time for appeals must be very short, so that you don't have students staying for a long time with their appeals unattended to. So we have agreed with NSFAS that all allowances will have to be paid on time, Zola, as you are asking. Also, the issue of upfront registration. I've been assured by NSFAS that they already have 4 billion rands that they will be giving to universities and colleges as money for them to register NSFAS students. Remember, NSFAS students do not pay registration, or government pays for them. Let me put it correctly, because somebody pays. Government pays for them registration fees. It doesn't have to come from them as NSFAS recipients. So there's 4 billion rands this year that NSFAS is going to be giving right away to the institutions so that they can be able to register. Because we still have this anomaly that universities and colleges normally start late January, well, mid-January, colleges actually. Yet the financial year ends end of March and it starts 1st of April, which is when then we transfer, Treasury transfer money to us, which we transfer to institutions. But NSFAS, using its own reserves, is going to be forwarding 4 billion rands in order to ensure, Zola, that there is no problem on the issue of registration of NSFAS students. We want to say to the NSFAS students themselves, please make sure that you actually make use of this to register so that you can settle as quickly as possible and have a good start to the academic year. That's why I also want to plead with political parties, DM. I think we have a duty to do so. Do not use the start of the academic year to launch your election campaigns. We cannot sacrifice the future of our youngsters by having political parties trying to use their influence to destabilize the start of the academic year, thinking that they will get votes. We can't be trading our young people and their future for narrow petty party political reasons. Now, Kaya FM, we are asking an important question on the capping of student what NSFAS pays for student accommodation. We've been engaging with the universities and the students on this matter. The fact of the matter is that 87% of our universities and colleges accept this cap of 45,000 rand as it was last year. That is reasonable. The 13% are saying we are battling. Our accommodation costs more than 45,000 rands per annum. Now, we are engaging with the Universities South Africa, Marcia. If you want to add on that, please feel free. We are engaging with them so that we try and find one another. Because also there is a chancing and exploitation of government. People tend to think that if it's government money, you can just do about everything that you want to do and be able to just charge exorbitantly. We have to contain that. That is why, by the way, the other matter that I need to clarify that is in the media and people are also is deliberate distortion. I don't set or increase university or college fees in South Africa as minister. That is the role of university councils. They are the ones who decide to increase and to increase by how much. All I do, since fees must fall, is that I provide guidelines and a framework to say, you shall increase university fees by no higher than this. That's important because we are also protecting NSFAS with that. Because if we just allow increases anyhow, NSFAS will be raided and it will soon become inadequate. And we have an understanding with our universities and we are working collegially. So please, don't come out and say the minister has increased fees. I don't increase fees. By the way, also I must defend this issue of increase of fees. Because you see protests, no increase in fees and so on. How do you address the fact that the price of milk goes up every year? The milk that universities are using in their student accommodation. Books, they increase every year. Everything increases every year. We don't like it, but it's a reality. Some of the people, DM, who actually raise these things, they confuse me. They are not critical of capitalism as a system that continuously increases the cost of living. Some of them call themselves big socialists, but they don't raise the fact that it's the capitalist system, it's nature to make a profit and therefore increase everything. If you say the universities must increase fees, how are they going to even offer what they are supposed to offer to students? Accommodation increases every year, by the way, and it's usually higher. Rent, whoever, you have a flat, it increases every year, the rent. So it's the same thing with student accommodation. We are giving a guideline. In fact, we are protecting rampant increase in fees by what I'm doing. But don't say as a minister, I'm the one who decides that there shall be fee increases. That's incorrect. I'm saying I must say that in this context also, because even with the issue of student accommodation, that's what we are trying to do by setting a cap, to say you can't go beyond. To me, it doesn't make sense. By the way, let's look at 45,000 rand, DM. 45,000 rand for 10 months, by the way, because we don't pay for all the 12 months because the academic year is not 12 months. It's 10 months. It means that we are paying for an apartment or a bed at 4,500 rand. In many parts of this country, those are small one-bedroom apartments for professionals, to be quite honest. 4,500 a month. For professionals. You'll get that in Pietermaritzburg, my hometown. A fairly decent one-bedroom, you know. But of course, in some metros, we agree that that may not just be enough, but we want to satisfy ourselves that they are not chancing, even by our own universities and colleges, that they want to charge more than what they actually offer. But we are discussing that matter so that we are able to not leave it unattended. And the sooner we finalize it, the better. I don't know, DM or Marcia, if you want to say something on this or other matters. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Minister. DM or DDG? DDG? Okay. The Minister covered the DM and the DDG so far. All right. Thanks so much. Can we do the last round of questions, if any, before we wrap up? Let me check in the house if we have a last round from GCIS online. Anything? There's nothing from your side. I don't.
I can just add something.
Okay. The DG, of course, wants to add. Over to you, DG.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Program Director. Our new fresh from the box MLO in the Office of the Minister, Mr. Velimpel. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's important that I introduce him. In this way, we trust that this continues to increase and improve our capacity to communicate with you. I wouldn't like us to miss the opportunity of what is actually the occasion today and spend most of the time discussing the operational issues at NSFAS and miss a historical moment. And that historical moment is an attempt by government to making sure that those young people in our country that are not able to access NSFAS funding, we are making an announcement of government work that has started by our minister a number of years ago, appointing the ministerial task team led by Professor Mdosa to start looking at a comprehensive student model. You are aware that an announcement was made by the minister to say these are the recommendations of the ministerial task team. There has been consultations by all our stakeholders, but today, what is important, what is the moment today, is that our minister is announcing that this is the beginning of the implementation of that model. It's going to be a phased model. It starts this year. It's not perfect. There's still some work to be done, but we are confident sitting here that this is the beginning of improving access to funding to our students, and therefore better opportunities for the underdog, better opportunities for many South Africans who would like to access education. To me, this is the most important, and more important than every day the work that we need to do to try and deal with the administrative issues at NSFAS. In this regard, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for the work that you do, but we also appeal to you to assist us to really communicate this very important message to many of our students who've been denied access to funding because of the threshold that excluded them, and in some cases to a point where many deserving students have actually not accessed funding. We are really happy about today. We are happy about the message that our minister is presenting today. And we thank you for your contribution thus far. And I would like to take this opportunity, Minister, to also thank the ministerial task team that has worked with us over a number of years now to put together this model, which we have presented to Cabinet and which has been approved by our Cabinet. We also wish to thank our Deputy Minister for his contribution and leadership in this regard, and all the officials in the university branch that have helped us. Clearly, the work is not complete. There's still a lot of work to be done. If we are saying in the first year we are going to be funding 47% of the total of estimated 68,000 students, that means there still are students that may not be funded. and therefore there is more work that we need to do to making sure that they also continue to access the funding that will ensure that the doors of learning and culture are open for all. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you, DG. Thanks so much. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Deputy Minister. Thank you, DG. Thank you, DDG. Thank you, A special thanks to you, colleagues in the media, for the support. It's on a Sunday, and we appreciate the fact that you came to support us. And everybody else who has helped us, in particular colleagues from GCIS. That concludes this media briefing. Thank you so much, and enjoy the day further.
Sithemba niqale esontweni nje ukuze ngiphothe kahle nithandazile.